Hi, this is Venumadhav Vadnala, the Principal Instructor of Fine Arts, Madhav's Atelier of the Arts. In this particular video, I am talking about the approach of drawing the portrait of Rabindranath Tagore using Rayleigh's method. So let's get started. There are so many versions of Rayleigh's method that are being showcased in lots of video tutorials from various artists, and what I feel is it's not nothing is wrong. The only thing is people have been improvising after really has created this particular approach. And if any approach that you are following, whether it is artists X, Y, or Z, whatever be the approach that you are following up, and if it's giving you good results, that's pretty much it. Now here, basically what are we trying to do here is we are trying to build a perfect circle. The circle is a cranium. The back portion of our head, which is round, is called cranium. So we are actually trying to build that cranium, and then accordingly we are actually trying to build the holistic features of that particular person, here Tagoreji, Rabindranath Tagore. So um yeah so every circle needs to be divided into four equal parts. I'll have to create a complete video tutorial which actually helps you to understand the release method properly, but based on that particular knowledge I'm trying to give you here. So if you do not have a knowledge, then I'll create another video tutorial. You'll also find a lot of other video tutorials on YouTube as well on release method. It's not that I'm the only artist that I'm doing creating a video tutorial on release method. You can also for timing use follow that particular thing. So the middle portion is actually dividing the whole face into two equal parts, which is the symmetrical line. So here, since the Tagoreji's face, the left, his, whenever I'm talking left or right, it is his left and his right, not with respect to our left and our right. So do not get confused. So when we are actually trying to split the whole face into two equal parts vertically, that means it is actually dividing the whole face into two equal halves. But here, the line that I have drawn is not splitting into two equal parts, because the reference picture has probably more than 75-80% of his left portion of the face is clearly visible, and only 10 to 15% of his right portion of the face is visible to us. That is the reason I have drawn a curved line there instead of straight line. Why? Because our face is a convex structure. It is not a flat structure. Since it's a convex structure in the sense it is like a bump. Nose is kind of a bump. So that means if you are looking at from a side profile, any of the faces, it actually has not a straight line but at a curved line. The curved line actually starts at the tip of the frontalis, that is at the hairline, and ends at the chin. Okay, so that is the reason I have drawn that particular line curve right from the tip of the hairline to the chin. This will actually shows how the face is turned or tilted towards left. How many degrees it actually tilted will actually be divided or determined with the help of the curved line that you have drawn. Once that is drawn, I have again drawn a vertical line. Now this vertical line for a straight face is actually going through the half of the circle is going through the eyebrow. It's eyebrow line, not eye line. Eyebrow line. So I drew the eyebrow line, but it's not straight. If you closely observe it, it has got a little curve. That little curve shows that the eyebrows are in that line. So whenever you are looking at eyebrows, the eyebrows at the keystone or glabella are lowered than when compared to the other ends of the eyebrows. That means the ends of the eyebrows which are at the temple bones, they are like going upwards, and the ends of the eyebrows at the keystone or glabella are inside into the nose. So they are like to be very honest and clear, they are extended format of V shapes. So never ever draw eyebrows in a straight line. The straight line shows that they fall on this particular line, but they will not be in straight line. Okay, so now after that I am actually working on his left eye. So this left eye, you will have to properly create a keystone or glabella, and according to the distance that you have in the reference picture, according to the gap that you have between two eyes, you have to create that eye. How do you get that? The best and easiest way is I am not using here anything. For your kind information, I am using only one HB pencil. It's a normal HB pencil, one graphite pencil which is HB pencil. It's a normal one. It is not particularly used for any drawing session. Generally it is used for writing. But why, you must be thinking, why this guy has been posting a lot of videos only using HB pencil and no other pencil is used, and this particular sketchbook is a normal sketchbook. So why? The question is, I do not want people to get into a mode wherein we need hi-fi materials to draw something great. There is a saying, great people do not do different things, they do things differently. So even if you have got good amount of knowledge and practice, the normal mediocre substandard materials can also bring greatest results. That is what I believe in. That is the reason I've been showcasing all these quick sketches. These are called quick sketches. They did not take not more than probably 30 to 40 minutes, or some are only within 20 to 25 minutes I finished. So this is one of the examples of such quick sketches. This is a A5 square shaped sketchbook which is available in India. So I have been using this to draw all my sketchbook series portraits. So let's get into the details again. So here, how do you get the size of the nose? So you might have seen, how did I draw the nose wing? For the nose wing, first you are supposed to get the eyes in proper shape, size, perspectives and proportions. Only then you can basically get back to any other portion of the face. So eyes fall as a directive to the other portions of the face. So please understand, you have to focus more on drawing this initially. And if you have your woolen needle which is made out of aluminum, which is almost a feet, okay, that's a very good tool, because it is not very thin. It doesn't hurt you if you keep on holding it. It is not very thick, which actually doesn't cause you any problem of measuring the minutest precisions. So it is it's called basically an optimum thickness that you can hold it and handle it very easily. So you basically hold your woolen needle with the help of your left hand. If you are looking at desktop or laptop, do not draw it from phones. It's not advisable. Phone has, even if you use Blu-ray filters, it will cause harm to your eyes, and you will not be able to your brain will not be able to read all that what is required, all the details what is required to draw. So always I advise you to use either laptop or iPad or desktop. Okay, now if you wanted to open any reference picture in your laptop or desktop, please freeze at some position. If you are using Microsoft tool or any other photo editor tool, open the photograph in the same position. Like if it is 80% zoomed, keep it there to an optimum size wherein you'll be able to read all the details, open it up and keep it at the same area. Why? Because if you keep on measuring with your woolen needle, if you keep on changing the position or the size of the reference picture, your sizes will be on your drawing will be different, so it might end up in a weird portrait. So let us focus on fixing that reference photograph on the desktop in the same position. Start measuring with your left hand on the screen and use the same, because we are drawing 1:1. Let us assume we are drawing 1:1 and use the same measurement onto your drawing sheet. One. Second thing is, if you are not comfortable in putting this woolen needle on the desktop, I would definitely advise you to start drawing from a printout. Okay, the printout, whenever you are taking a black and white printout, because the toner actually sticks the black powder to the paper, it might fade off after using for some time. So make sure that you take a good printout, either oil print or a nice printer from a good printer. A nice printout is required. Then start adding all those measurements from your reference picture onto your drawing sheet. So most of the times Rayleigh's method will actually help you to get the proper positions of the features. It might not give you the contours. Rayleigh's method will not give you the contours. For example, the eye, if you are actually looking, keeping a wicked expression, that way of the way you actually put your eyebrows or eyes will not be given by Rayleigh's method. Rayleigh's method will give you the positioning of the feature, not the contours. Contours is the curvatures of that particular feature. So you need to focus more on your ability to get the contours right. It is up to single individual's interest and ability how he is actually focusing more on progressing himself in various methodologies, using various practice exercises. Even though, see, there is a saying in English, like if you do practice, I cannot give you whether you will succeed or not, but I can guarantee you, if you will not practice, you will not gain anything. You will definitely lose. So practice, it will never give you bad results. The only thing is, you have to remember that you should be practicing in a right way, not wrong way. That is the reason you need a mentor. I think I have already mentioned it in my other videos also. You need a mentor to make sure that you are doing your practice, you are going it in a right way. Right, let's come back to this. So the contours is something which you are supposed to practice more on still lifes. The still lifes should be exactly the same way. The proportions, perspectives, everything you should get it right in the initial stage. That means unless and until your outline is perfectly right, do not ever go to the blending. This is something which everybody should remember, because even if your blending is beautiful, if the outline skeleton is not proper, you might end up with a beautiful portrait but not the exact portrait that you are trying to attempt. That means if you are drawing X, you will be getting somewhere close to X plus 1 or X minus 1 or someone, but not X. So remember, keep this in mind and then practice. Even before getting portraitures, we are supposed to practice still lifes so much that you are confident enough in drawing the outlines absolutely right. Absolutely. Precisely it should be right. Now, after doing that, the contours are right, then draw, after eyes are drawn, then draw some straight lines which actually creates the or determines the end of the nose wings here. For example, in this portrait, I am drawing a straight line. If you closely observe, the middle portion or the end of the tear duct, the end of the tear duct, actually when you draw up a straight line, vertical line, it will give you where the nose wing starts or nose wings ends, for that matter. But it will not give you how much thickness the nose wing should be. Rayleigh's method will not give you how much thick the nose wing should be. This is all about your empirical knowledge, your experiential knowledge, which will help you to get it right. So how do you get that? Practice. The greatest guru of the world can give you the best formula only saying the practice. So sadhana, practice is the best mantra a greatest guru can give. So keep remembering this and practice as much as you can. Now when I'm drawing the uh, the contour beneath the eyes, which actually shows that is the end of the socket, the line, the contour that I have drawn, which shows that that is end of the socket. So the upper line of the eyebrow and the lower line of the eye underneath the kajal area will give you the total socket, total size of the socket of the eye. That determines the trait of that particular or feature of that particular portrait that you are working on. So it pretty much gives you absolutely the right information of that size of the eye. So you should never go wrong. So in order to get it right initially for the first time, you might have seen I have not used eraser so far. I have used eraser for correcting the highlights, but not for correcting my mistakes. That means you should never do any mistakes. I mean, as much as possible, try avoiding. How do you get to that stage? Practice still life, which are very easy. Then when you get to this stage of drawing portraiture, your life becomes easy. It is easily manageable. And remember to keep your pencil sharp, because sharp pencil will give you precise lines. How much ever you want that particular line to be, whether thick or thin, it gives you. But if you hold on to stick to a very blunt pencil, it might not give you fruitful results. Okay, these are all the things I pretty much follow in every work of mine, which will make me to stick to the right proportions and get the proportions straight away right the first go. I think I'm assuming you guys are following it. So what I would advise you is, if you are looking at my or watching at my video, probably go through the video once, and second time when you put it, you just try practicing or putting down your pencil on the paper along with me. Try doing the same thing, then let's see how and why will you not get. But even before that, I strongly urge you to practice still life as much as you can, and then get back to portraiture. Because portraiture, when you attempt, it might actually cause a lot of harm to your confidence levels. You might get a big hit on your confidence level if you do not practice still lifes properly and get to portraiture. So please mind it, be careful, do not ever tamper your confidence. So I started creating the rough texture. Now here the rough texture, what I am trying to do is I am trying to get the leverage, I am trying to get the positional advantage of using this rough paper. It is not rough actually, it's called grainy. The paper is a grainy paper, it's a normal sketch paper. So I am trying to I'm leveraging the grain of the paper by touching my smoothest and the sharpest lead, only a feather light touch. That feather light touch will actually help me to get the rough texture. So I am trying to get the rough texture with the help of touching my tip of the pencil on the grains of the paper. So when you push pencil, use little hard, and if you are holding the pencil perpendicular to the paper, it gets into the tooth of the paper and you will get the darker tones. So you observe, whenever I am trying to do the darker areas, I am trying to lift my pencil above 45 degrees. If I am trying to get the texture, I am using below 45 degrees. I don't know if you are able to make it out. So above 45 degrees is making my pencil stand on the paper so that it can get into the grooves, it can get into the tooth of the paper. If I am using my pencil below 45 degrees, I am trying to touch base the crusts, the upper portions of the grains, and touching the lower portions of the grains, which are called troughs, crusts and troughs. Troughs are remained pristine, white paper as is. That is the reason you are able to see the smallest white spots with which you are able to see that the skin is rough textured there. Hope you got my point. If you are unable to get it right, listen to my explanation twice or thrice. If you have still got any questions, qualms, please do mention your feedback, comments and questions below. I'll try to answer as much as possible. So this is called laugh line. If you character lines or laugh lines, generally in Rails method these are called laugh lines. And for the animation people, they call it as character lines. So I'm using very subtly. Why? Because if you are using dark tone, I mean you are using a little pressure, it gets into the tooth of the paper and you will have to get it light. When you get it light, try to get it light with the help of kneaded eraser. It will take only the darker areas or darker tint from the crusts of the grains. What about the troughs? You will never be able to retrieve the troughs white. That is the reason better to use the pencil with a very little pressure on the grains of the paper only. Now I am measuring the hairline. It is supposed to be from hairline to the keystone, or for bindi area, we call it in India, it's called bindi area. From hairline to keystone or glabella, the center of the eyebrows, it is 1. From there to the tip of the nose, it is 2. And from tip of the nose to the tip of the chin is 3. So 3 times is the actual length of any human's face. This is the basic formula. So I'll give you more information in Rails method. So you'll probably get more idea. I'm using here cross edge, but try understanding. I'm not using with the tip. If I use the tip, you will get lines. That is the reason I'm using the side of the pencil lead, which will give you the tint. It will basically cover larger portion because my lead is probably more than half of the inch, okay, or half inch. This half inch lead will cover half inch of the area of the paper. So it will be easy for us to cover that area with a little tint. That is how you will have to use your side along of the pencil to create a tint. This will make your life easy to cover larger portion of the face or paper to cover with the pencil tint. So this is the outline of the mustache, which actually blends into the big beard, white beard. So you might have a question: how did you start your this particular beard line or this particular mustache line? This is if you are asking me this question, that means you are not well versed with the still life knowledge, because this is empirical knowledge. Rayleigh's method or any method for that matter will not give you this knowledge. This knowledge is all supposed to be earned with lots of practice. Like we earn money with lots of hard work, with lots of love towards the fine arts, you are supposed to earn this knowledge. People might give you the ways to earn this knowledge. Mentors, teachers, gurus can give you the ways to earn this knowledge, but it is you who is supposed to basically get into the pragmatic approach, put your life, piece of life into it. This is some one kind of an art form wherein you can spend whole lifetime enjoying thoroughly the bliss that it gives you. So to experience the bliss, that is the reason it has been mentioned art for art's sake. Art for not earning sake or not for any other sake. Art for art's sake is the purest form of bliss while you are performing any arts, visual arts, fine arts, or any musical instrument, anything. You get such amazing bliss. In order to experience that bliss, you are supposed to pursuing this arts. That is the reason it's called art for art's sake, not for fame, name, money, credits, nothing. It's for the purest bliss that it gives. In order to experience that, you need to uh, thrive. You need to try, struggle so much that struggle itself will gives you, not every time struggle gives you happiness, but the struggle here gives you so much happiness. Even the priceless, it's called priceless happiness. I can say it's a priceless happiness. I have been experiencing it from last probably 15 years. So thoroughly enjoy and keep thanking people who are part and parcel of your bliss. That means who have been directly and indirectly helping you to achieve this kind of knowledge and helping you to improve in your skills. So that gratitude is something which always helps you grow. Be grateful to everything that is being bestowed upon you. Right, now you might wanted to understand how this outline of the hair has been done. You can the simple thing is, there are equations, there are underlying so many equations in each and every photograph of each and every portrait. For example, if you take Rabindranath Tagore ji, this Tagore ji's pictures, there are so many in the internet. Example, because we are drawing Tagore ji, let's talk about him. There are so many portraits, but whatever the equation this particular photograph has, it might not hold good for the same person's photograph, but a different photograph. Let me repeat. If this photograph has an equation, let us suppose one equation, it will hold good only to this portrait. I mean this photo only, not any other photo. What does that mean? This angle of the face which is giving that equation is holding good only for this. So now I'll tell you what is that equation. I've been talking about equation. What is that equation? For example, if the edge of his tear duct, if you draw a vertical line, it gives you the edge of the nose wing. Here in this particular angle of the face, it might not hold good for something else, because in generally if somebody is looking in a straight angle, the central portion of the eye, which is called pupil, if you draw a vertical line, it goes to the edge of the mouth, but here it might not hold good, so it will be different. So you'll have to basically find out such kind of equations in every portrait. That will give you leverage to get the proportions right, because your paper is a space. Without any referential points, your brain will not be able to find out the equations. So in order to find those equations lied within this portrait, you are starting with a circle. That's what Rayleigh method helps you. But later, over a period of time, as and when you proceed forward, you have to build your own equation. These equations are called empirical knowledge, and somebody, a mentor who's actually expert in portraitures, should be able to help you, because they will know how to look at that particular picture. They can draw a couple of equations from the picture that you have chosen and you are trying to draw, and he keeps telling you, or he keeps guiding you to build the equations from that portraiture or from that photograph, probably 10 photographs or 15 or 20. But later it is up to you how you actually try to derive those equations from a new photographs. So the mentor and guide or teacher is trying to give you what is the way to derive the equations. Equations could be different for different portraits. Even Tagore ji's different photograph can give you a different equation. So the mentor is going to will help you actually to derive those equations. Once the process of deriving equations are properly understood, you are done. You can draw any portrait. So Rayleigh's method and these equations, handling your blending tools, pencils, and right knowledge of handling the paper. There are so many constraints that needs to be understood, even putting down your pencil on the paper, especially for drawing portraiture. That is the reason portraiture is one of the finest form of fine arts, which will actually show or showcase the caliber the real caliber of a portraiture artist. Hope it makes sense. I think I tried my best to explain things, but if you feel anything, do let me know or give me your comments below, so that I'll try to improvise a couple of things. It help you understand things very clearly in more detailed way. Portions or hollow portions of the sockets, eye sockets, around the nose level. And most of the times I'm actually trying to understand the flow of the skin. See, on below the cheekbone, if you closely observe, it has a small triangle shape, which is the sharper tipper is below and the base is on the top. So that means that area is basically a dent because of the bump of the cheekbone. It's called zygomatic bone. The area below the zygomatic bone will not allow the light to pass through. That is the reason it is under the shadow, and you are seeing the triangle shaped shadow there. That's the trait of Tagorji's cheekbone, zygomatic bone. And here, if you are closely looking at the forehead, the forehead has lot of light. The forehead is lit. So this particular area, the corner of the face, our forehead is lit. So I am using very little pressure to create that lit, and slowly I am drawing from the lit area towards the right side, his right side. I am developing a tint, darker tint in the horizontal way, because when somebody frowns, the creases are in the horizontal direction, not in the vertical or in any other direction. That means you are supposed to understand the flow of the creases, flow of the tissues of the skin, and then blend or create the tissues accordingly. You don't have a freedom of doing it in any manner that you wish, because that becomes a rough sketches. But these are the sketches that you are actually trying to instill life into. Otherwise, using simple cross hatch, you can draw any kind of textures. Using cross hatch, you can draw any texture, but that texture shows all the lines. It shows only bumps and dents, are the upper and lower portions of the skin only, are the face planes only, but not the texture of the skin. It is because you are using only cross hatch for anything and everything. Here we are not doing so. We are using our pencil in such a way that we build the skin tissues according to the flow, how they are built at different areas. On the skin, on the face, the flow of the skin on the cheekbones is different, below the eyes is different, near the philtrum is different, near the chin is different, on the jawline it is different, around eyes it is different, on the forehead is different. There are so many areas. Each and every area defines specific flow, which defines the planes of the faces. Not everybody's it's a general scenario that we can say that tissue of the skin flow like this, but if you closely observe that particular person, it could be different. That defines the natural property of that face. So you need to study. That is the reason portraiture is called the greatest science in art form. Why? Because each and every face is different. If you take tigers, you can easily draw. Now, human beings, unless and until you spend longer time with that particular tiger, you will not be able to differentiate between two tigers. All the tigers are same, all the boxers are same, all the Pomeranians are same, all the lions are same, unless and until there is a huge cut or a wound cut that is visible on any one of the lion's face. You will remember that this lion is that. Otherwise, all the lions are same for normal human beings like us, unless and until you are expert in taming that particular breed. Now, why I'm talking about all these things is each and every person has a specific trait, and every person's facial planes are in different sizes, shapes, proportions, thickness. The flesh on each and every face plane difference are different to different person. That is the reason um, you will see different kinds of races on earth, like Asian race or European race, or or African race. These races actually has a generic way of building the muscle. That muscle you need to understand which race of person that you are drawing, and accordingly you will have to understand. If you ask me particularly, because I have been drawing so many portraits, and I'm confident, I'm most of the times, by looking at the photograph on the Facebook, my mind, my conscious tells that he's a Bengali, he's a Gujarati, or he's a Tamilian, he's a Kerala. That means it is not about making the disparities or differences. No, it is all about learning the portraiture, making my muscle memory strong in identifying the features of the face. This will help you to become a wonderful portraiture artist. You should thoroughly read the human's faces. You should never forget any human's face if you even meet them once or twice. That kind of strong memory you should build. So when teacher says that they are wasting time drawing, it is absolutely wrong, because why students are very sharp than grown up adults is because we stop learning. We stop learning anything and everything. We just stick to one of the old rotten method of project management or any other thing, and we think that we are professionals and we are superiors and we have been managing so many people, but we stopped learning. That's the reason corporate companies encourage learning of doing certifications. It's because as and when you learn new things, the old layers of your brain cells, they get obsolete, worn out and die out. And when you are trying to learn new things, new layer, new tissues will be born. As and when you try to learn new things, when you remind yourself, when you try to recollect things, they get freshen up. That's the reason most of the people who do not continue learning anything, it could be anything, they will not grow old easily. That means they don't forget things easily. Alzheimer's don't affect them, so they don't get affected with Alzheimer's in a very young age. All these things will happen. It is true to the best of my knowledge, because I've been into this, and I've been researching, I've been reading a lot of other journals, medical journals as well. So when you are really learning something, that something should actually give you thorough energy, which should actually help you take up good challenges. As and when you learn something, incorporate it. You learn from your mistakes, rectify them, go learn again. You grow with some knowledge, apply that knowledge into practical things, because knowledge is one stage, know-how is a naive stage, knowledge is a second stage, wisdom is third stage. Unless and until you apply your knowledge, it will not become wisdom. And people with knowledge are very, very meagerly useful to the society. People with wisdom are useful to the society. They are the people that are required. But wise people do not talk too much, and they do not say that I am ready here for helping, come and let me know. You should find out, and do not blame anybody who is not helping you, because you might be in a stage where you might not be asking the right person, or you might be hesitant to reach out that particular person. Unless and until you do not approach, you will not know whether that the person is really ready to help you or not. So nothing wrong even if you hear no. If you need something from them, you can please go and approach. So this is one of the wonderful ways of enjoying thoroughly your life. When you learn these fine arts, it will give you so much of knowledge and thorough happiness, that will take you and introduce you to the wonderful thing called bliss. That bliss is something which is eternal, happiness is something temporary. So Such kind of art forms will give you will make you experience bliss. That is the reason most of the artists, if, whatever, if you go and read out the life histories of great artists, whatever be the mood they are in, whether they are sorrowful or grateful or happy or not so in good mood, in a very mediocre kind of portion of their life, they'll still do the artwork, but that mood will replicate in their work. That's a different story. But the point is, the bottom line is, they are still creating their artwork. That is the reason great masters are always great masters, and we learn so many things from them. And there are so many great masters which are not being recognized. So when you dig thoroughly the history, that will help you. That's the reason my Guruji keeps saying, whenever you go to new place, the first thing that you should visit is museum. It can visually appeal you and help you understand the culture, rich culture, heritage and problems, whatever with the economical problems, or how did it develop, it progress, everything. Then later, second thing is library. So when you get some time, go to the new place, sit in the library and read about that particular. That's the reason when you go to North India, don't try to order idli. So the point is, people might not well versed with the process of cooking idli, right? Making idli. So eat there, whatever that's the local recipe. That will basically help you release that flavor. So in the same way, go to that area whenever you are going to the any new places. Go to museums and libraries, read about them, understand those things. That is how you will get to know. That is how you will have food for thought. Because you are an artist, it will give you food for thought. It will make you search for the local heritage, culture, dressing, the human beings, what do you call them, their daily routine, their habits, food habits, or whatever the cultural habits. Then you will understand that there is something which is beautiful in it. You will stick to one or two things of that particular area which are more beautiful, where you will not find such things anywhere in any part of the world. That will actually give you food for thought, and it will help you work more on different kinds of portraiture with different kinds of subjects. So you should not only search in Google, Pinterest or Pixabay to because those photographs are available to each and every person who opens Google. But if you go to some new place, talk to them, click some pictures, read about them, then you will get to know some new things which are very much genuine, very much authenticated. And those authentic information or authentic photographs are the real sources of your inspiration, and they pretty much actually define you, how much genuine and real true artist you are. So whenever you go to new places, click some good picture. You never know what might trigger going forward. The photographs might not be useful immediately, probably in a day or two, but over a period of time you will have to dig them out, and then you will know that those pictures that you clicked long back are useful now. Trust me, I have experienced this. Not only myself, there are so many bird photographers, animal photographers who are actually spending their lot of life in forests and some remote places, and they have been clicking thousands of pictures, out of which only probably handful of pictures are useful, and that handful of pictures actually bring a lot of laurel to them. So hard work will never go waste. It will pay off. You need to have patience and wait until you are paid off, and never stop until you paid off. You should not sit quiet. You should be doing hard work on a couple of other things, because the hard work that you have already done will pay you off later. Until then, you should not sit quite calm and wait for the results. Do something else. This something else, now whatever you are doing, will get paid off later after a few months. So that is the reason you should never stop working. And more often, I keep saying in all my sessions to my thousands of students, your love for your work defines the quality of the work that you are delivering. So remember these couple of things that I have been experiencing. it's more of practical knowledge that what I have been experiencing. So whatever that I am talking, it is all about my own pure experiential knowledge out of my 14 years of struggle all by myself. No single individual has taught me how many number of pencils are there. It is my struggle. I try to find it out. I try to use them. I struggle to understand the difference between HB and B. So many things. Even there is a pencil called F. I found it out later after a couple of years of drawing so many portraits. So now I know how many kinds of pencils, how to use them. It is all about how much passionate you are to dig that particular area of the subject. How much deep you are trying to dig, so much better and expert you become, and you will become the subject matter expert, SME. So that subject matter expert knowledge, if you are a good teacher, you can explain and help other people. If not, it will definitely help you. For that, forget about explaining other people. It should first help you. Later, it helping someone. So these are all the important things. If you are closely observing the highlight of the white beard, what I am trying to do is, I am not trying to touch the beard directly because it's a white beard. But white beard is being drawn on white paper. What are you supposed to do? Don't draw the white beard. Instead, draw the background which is little darker than the white beard. You should not leave the white beard as white paper. Why? Because in the portrait, the reference portrait, if you see, the picture is not white. It has a light rustic tint, like sepia tint. If you, I'll probably put a photograph there on the top. So when you see that this particular has a rustic look, so that means you are not supposed to keep the white paper as is when it comes to beard. You will have to give a little tint, and the tint should be little darker on the edges and background, so that it shows the proper shape of the beard. Yeah. So there is a very little subtle tones that are little dark. All these things are supposed to be drawn with the help of your blending stump or earbud. I don't use anything because it's a sketchbook. I purposefully do not use anything. Now I'm just quickly drawing using a simple pencil and kneaded eraser. Nothing is being used here. So finally, since we are coming to the climax of this particular video, if you are really liking this video, please do subscribe to my channel. Please share my video tutorials to them. You never know, they might be thankful enough in their lifetime. Yeah, so I am creating a tint on the beard, and then I'm erasing. That means that erasing portion will actually help people or viewer to understand that it is a bunch of white hair which is shining like silver hair. So this is how the contrasts, the complementing contrasts are created, which will help you understand the beauty of this work. There is no proper pencil line. I am just rubbing my pencil onto the paper, but I am not creating any pencil line. When I am just rubbing my pencil lead onto the paper, it is creating such kind of hairy texture. And in between, I am using my pinched knead eraser, which is pinched to get a sharp edge, and I am drawing white lines. That means those white portions of the beard which are shining due to light hit highlights. So that way I'm creating the fine sharp areas of beard, but I'm not drawing any lines as is. It's all about how to handle the pencil with little pressure, different pressures and different angles, and then handling the needed eraser properly. These two things, if you already well versed with the still lifes, then these two things will actually give you a wonderful result or output when you are approaching a portrait. But how many ever number of portraits you draw, practice is mandatory. You say that I have drawn 15 20, I don't need practice, I can draw anything. I don't think so, it is right. You should always keep practicing, because the greatest peoples, the strength of the greatest people is nothing but they think that they are still lacking in something, and they pretty well know their drawbacks and they work on the drawbacks. That is the greatness. That's the reason they are greats and they are legends. They know what they are lacking in, and they've spent so much of time and energy, they put their effort in it. Normal people feel that they're very good at something and they stop. No, people who knows what their drawbacks is are the very knowledgeable persons, are the more smart people, because they know that they'll not be able to do justice to that particular thing, so they will not attempt it, but they focus more on practicing to get those things answered, or those gray areas answered, and then they start working on those things. So enjoy. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.